What's going on all you Helldivers? Today I'm going to be going over all of the brand new weaponry we've got in the game from the cutting edge warbond upgrade and let you know exactly how I feel they fit into the game, how good they are, what they're versatile with, if they're worth purchasing. I'll be giving you a rating of them all based on my gameplay and how good I feel they were within the missions I ran. Now the first weapon we're going to be going over, and my personal favourite of the new lot and one of the best weapons I think currently in the game, is going to be the LAS 16 Sickle. This thing is just a lot of fun to use, it really is. It's versatile because it's got a nice bit of range to it, it's very accurate as well, especially if you're crouching, and it does a fair amount of damage. Not the highest amount of damage, so some targets will be something you don't really want to tackle, for example your chargers, your bile titans, anything with kind of medium to heavy armour, probably stay a little bit clear of with this thing. But the smaller ads and the lesser armor enemies, this can probably take them out faster than almost anything in the game. In fact, it's just ridiculously good. Also, because it's an energy based weapon, if you're playing your cards right, you can make it so you're never going to run out of that ammo, but sometimes that might not factor in, because if you're going completely gung-ho, then as you can see here, when it goes red in the bar down the bottom here, if you hear a little click, you're going to need to change the energy module on your weapon, very similar to if it was a magazine. Another great thing I found with this gun is the actual kind of alternate fire mode. Instead of it hitting harder or doing something different, this one, the alternate fire mode, actually gives you a different rangefinder, whether it be 25, 50 or 100 meters. So this is great for scouting missions and for anyone that likes a little bit of versatility with their weapons. I found this gun overall a ridiculous amount of fun to play. It was really good, and I also found it probably the best weapon in the game if I was playing it as a first person shooter. So if you enjoy first person mode, this one is definitely worth putting on your list. And for that reason alone, I'm going to be bringing it up to A tier. A little bit more damage, I think it would definitely be on that S tier range. Now over to a completely different way to play. This time we're going to be taking a look at the Plasma Punisher. This is odd, I'm not going to lie, it's odd, it's very strange compared to a lot of the other weaponry. You have to use this in a completely different playstyle. Because its actual plasma effect gives it a little AoE, you have to be very careful with how you're using this. Close range, you're going to kill yourself, you're going to kill your friends, you're going to kill the NPCs if you're trying to save them, so you really do need to be a little bit careful with this one. However, I have found it is quite good if you use it on the floor just in front of enemies or underneath them, and seems to knock them around quite well. Often I've found that I was doing this more so than even hitting them in the head, because I could whiff a few shots or miss what my intended target was. Because it has got a little bit of AoE, hitting the floor often worked out better a lot of times I felt in big groups. Again, don't try and use this on anything too big, for example things such as your chargers, and one of the main things I found was that if there was a lot of hunters in the map, because this thing was quite slow firing, I got taken out ridiculously quick, and anything that's really fast attacking you is going to give you a really bad day. On the complete opposite to this, however, is going to be if you're on the automaton missions. On the automaton missions, because I had a nice bit of range, it was doing some pretty decent damage, especially against those medium targets, and I also noticed it had a bit of a knockback effect as well. So this really made me think that it's worth taking into a lot of missions, especially ones with turrets and such, because I could hit them at distance and take them out before they took out me or my teammates. For that reason, I've given this one 2 ratings. For the Terminid side, I've been a bit harsh and given it a D tier, it's probably around about C to be fair, and Automatons, I found it much better and ranked it in at that A tier. Next up, and the one that I was most looking forward to playing, was going to be the Arc Blitzer. This thing, stats wise, looks like it's incredible and completely broken and overpowered. High damage, capacity of pretty much infinite, meaning you can use it constantly without having to worry about anything. You're never going to run out of this, but things aren't always how they seem on paper, and this one definitely does have some drawbacks as well as some really good positives to it. When you're taking on Terminids, this can one-shot a lot of enemies if you're hitting them in the head, and that's one thing I would advise with this. Do not spray and pray, which I was doing at the start, because you're going to be missing enemies or not kind of hitting their vital organs, parts, or what you're aiming for. Use it a bit like a shotgun, you're going to be close range, make sure you're aiming for that head. When you are, you're probably going to pop what you're aiming for as long as it's not too heavily armoured, as well as it's streaking off to other enemies and hurting them, or maybe taking them out as well, because this is really good when you're playing in a team. But don't get too close to them, because again, you can hurt them with the lightning damage effect. Solo, I would not advise using this. I found myself having a very bad day, and on robots, again, it didn't seem to be quite as good as the Terminid side. It's not awful by any means, because you can take out some of the lesser ads, but because of how many close range things with fire, and because I found myself moving quite slow, I often got hit by things such as rockets. Ultimately, because of that, I'm going to say it's a little bit better on the Terminid side, and I'm going to give it an A rank for the Terminids, and I'll say it's probably about B tier for the automatons. Over to our secondary weapon, and this one's a lot of fun to use, very easy, very much worth putting in your secondary slot on a lot of missions, because you know you're not going to run out of ammo again. And that's going to be the LAS 7 Dagger. This weapon was actually quite hard to rate, because you can get constant ammo with it, and that's something you may well want on your secondary. It can take down the smaller enemies, and most times that's going to be enough. But the more and more I started playing with this weapon, the more I found myself being kind of overwhelmed by some of the enemies, because it just didn't pack quite enough of a punch. This is still a great weapon to use, especially if you find yourself being out of ammo on your primary very often and you're waiting for a resupply, then this will probably be your go-to pick. However, I found that the machine gun pistol that I had in place of it worked better in almost all situations, except for obviously the ammo conservation. If you're worried about ammo, this will definitely go up a rank. You're probably going to be able to rate this at around about an A, but personally I think this comes in at about the B tier as it stands at the moment. Lastly, and what I think is the best piece of kit in the game now, is going to be our stun grenade. This thing is an absolute monster. It really is. It's a lot of fun to play. It helps the team out massively, and I think at least one person or maybe even two people might want to be running these in a squad every single time you jump into a mission. It works great against your bots, it works great against your Terminids, it's just a top pick all round. And although it says it doesn't do damage, as you can see here, when we fire it against some of these targets, especially the ones with the open backpacks, I found it can actually damage or destroy them when you hit them. This is great if you want to be lining up some shots, you want to be lining up some stratagems, you need a little bit of kind of downtime, you need to run away from things, and again it works perfect against both factions. It even stuns some of the toughest targets in the games like the Bile Titans and the Chargers, so if you want to be a complete team player, or you just want to make sure that things are stunned for a little while in an area so that you can bring in an airstrike, a cluster bomb, or just make your teammates' life a little bit easier, then this is going to be the one for you. Obviously it's not going to do what the impact grenade does, but overall I think this is a top pick, and for that reason I'm going to be chucking it in that S tier. Right, that's pretty much all of the new stuff we've got in the game. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you think I've got completely wrong to how you have it. Hopefully you're having a lot of fun on Helldivers, and as always, for all things gaming, take care. I'll see you on the next day.